Viewer discretion is advised as I talk about this story right here, which is two houses on the same property. One is the cabin on 360, and the other one is the Smurder House. The Smurder House will contain a lot of information about some very sensitive matters, about something that happened there that should have never happened in the first place. It's sad, it's horrible, and let's go on with the story. Now, this property alone has a lot of history with it, with the Revolutionary War, Native Americans on top of a Civil War battle that passed through, surrounding this whole entire property from a tenth of a mile to 3 miles. Y'all, there were battles fought here, and a lot of people lost their lives. The soldiers from the Civil War passed through here as they were on their way to the Battle of Bethesda, and this was even partially fought on this property as well, from what I've gathered. And they were on their way to Cold Harbor, and if you went to Cold Harbor, oof, you pretty much had a sentence to your unaliving. The 10th Infantry of Virginia, well, there was 500 of them about a tenth mile up the road from this property, and 400 lay unalived on the ground by the time that battle was done. So we can say that this land right here is soaked in blood from the river that flowed through there from tenth of a mile north from the men that were in those battles. And this is why they allegedly catch Confederate soldiers in the woods as well as disembodied voices. Now, during the Civil War, a house did sit on the property that was owned by the Currys. In the 1980s, the cabin was built, and no one's ever lived there. It was never a residential cabin. It was just used as a sample house for people that were going to go out there and build you a log cabin. It's been a hair salon and a brothel. And in this cabin, there were allegedly 4 to 6 spirits. Now, one of these spirits is of an older man, said to be dressed in the 1920s and 1930s attire. And I spoke to the owner, and he told me his own personal experience. He said that they had had a fundraiser for toys about 9 to 10 years ago, and he decided he'd had a couple of these and he didn't want to drive, so he was going to stay in the cabin for the night. He went up to the cabin loft in the little part where you can look into the downstairs, and he put a pillow there and got in the sleeping bag and zipped himself up. He turned Pandora on his phone and laid back there and, just went to sleep. He said he woke up in the middle of the night with his Pandora being off on his phone, and it was just silence, but he had a weird feeling, and he opened his eyes and he looked at his feet, and there was a man, an old man, standing over him looking at him. And he said that he was trying to get out of that sleeping bag as fast as he could, and he's trying to reach for his you-know-what, because he said this man looked real. It was solid, and he just knew it was somebody. So as soon as he turned over to go grab his you-know-what, he came back, and it was gone. Now, during the time that this place was a bordello, they seemed to pick up EVPs from the cabin that would probably tend to say that it was. And they seemed to get highly intelligent interactions in this cabin. There's also a male child that is seen in the cabin as well. But the old man is said to be more of a protector spirit. There's nothing malevolent in this house. It is just said that it is just pretty much very active. These spirits want to speak. They want to interact with you. And they do their best to do so. And there's a lot of evidence proving that they do. And this house right here is actually the Smurder House, aka the Elliott House, or the Rancher is what they call it. The Ranch House. And this is where a girl lost her life from her half-brother. This beautiful girl right here was named Melissa Ann Elliott. And back in the 1970s, her half-brother said that he was convinced by something downstairs in the basement where he had been hanging out to do some really awful things. And he essayed her. And then he put 2 of those in her chest and alived her, and then took her body outside and went towards the wood line and put her body inside a refrigerator box. There were some men that were back there that were bush hogging and doing some work for a company that just owned the property back there, and they saw him, Randy was his name, he was 17, carrying something out there, and then he took off running when he saw them after he dumped it. His mother claimed that he was possessed, that he spent a lot of time in the basement, and that whatever was in the basement convinced him to do it, because he wouldn't leave the basement without being told to do so aggravatingly. In the Rancher, it's said that you can still speak to Melissa to this day, and that she will communicate with you. The owner told me himself that he was in her bedroom and they were trying to talk to Melissa, and he said, "Melissa, are you here with us, sweetheart?" And she responded back, "I'm with you." Also, if you're in this house, if you knock on the walls, you can get knocking guys' responses back. But what resides downstairs in the basement, ooh, now that one is not human, and they say that it's possibly an elemental. This elemental is said to be very angry, mean, malicious, and it's caused some paranormal investigators to have their personality changed while investigating. There's also a dark figure of a man that's about 6'3" that likes to intimidate people near the living room. The owner said he has made his way up the basement through the kitchen and was headed from the kitchen into the living room, and he was looking at the three windows in the front when all of a sudden this huge figure whooped out of nowhere and was in his face, and he told it to back off. And when it did, it dissipated and he heard boots running. I will say that the cabin on 360 and the Elliott House, Rancher House, Murder House are highly active places, and the owners are fantastic. And if you want to investigate either place or both, you absolutely can by looking on their website or their Facebook. And right here was a picture that I got off their website that shows a figure in the window. And there's you a close-up. Do you want to investigate the cabin on 360 or the other house on the property? Let me know in the comments, y'all. And don't forget to follow me for more paranormal stories.